This week on our first episode of Missing, we will be describing the details around the disappearance of Edward and Stephania Andrews. On May 15, 1970, Edward and Stephania Andrews attended a cocktail party at the Sheraton Hotel in Chicago. The night was bustling with live music, laughs, cocktails, evening gowns, and a carefree atmosphere, but when Edward and Stephania left the Sheraton Hotel, it was the last time anybody had seen them alive. Edward Andrews grew up in Bowbells, North Dakota, and traveled across the United States before deciding to call Chicago home. He would later meet Stephania, and the two eventually got married. As far as friends and family could tell, Edward and Stephania had a happy marriage. Edward was a manager of a manufacturing company, while Stephania was a credit investigator. The couple had planned on retiring the year of their disappearance. Edward and Stephania enjoyed nights out. Neighbors would often see the Andrews leaving their house dressed up for many evening parties. They were described as a couple that cared for their appearance and how they came across. Those that were close to them viewed them as very orderly. They were known to be very well dressed, and their home was often described as always being kept neat and tidy. This detailed care for appearance and orderliness is an important characteristic, and we will come back to why this is important later in the video. Edward and Stephania arrived at the party at the Sheraton Hotel in Chicago between 5:30 p.m. and 6 p.m., right after they had both finished work. The party was hosted by the Women's Association of the Allied Beverage Industries. The two tickets were given to Stephania by her supervisor at her credit investigation company. Witnesses at the party described Edward and Stephania as in great spirits, but oddly at a distinct point during the night, the mood suddenly changed. Partygoers saw the sudden change in mood as they saw Edward rapidly becoming ill. Varying reports differ from witnesses on how much Edward and Stephania had to drink at the cocktail party. Edward and Stephania started to leave the party at around 9:30 p.m. and headed down to the elevator into the underground parking garage. Pearson, the parking attendant, saw Edward and Stephania struggle to enter their 1969 Oldsmobile. Edward was staggering to open the car door. Pearson approached Edward and Stephania, but Edward assured him that he was okay to drive home. This didn't appear to be the case, as Edward quickly drove his car into the garage exit door. While Pearson ran over to Edward to tell him that he shouldn't be driving home, he saw Stephania in tears in the passenger seat. Neither Edward nor Stephania got out of their vehicle to take a look at the damage of their car and drove off on the wrong side of Mission Avenue. That was the last time anybody had seen Edward and Stephania Andrews alive. The couple raised alarms when they failed to show up to a neighborhood dinner the next night, and then both failed to show up on Monday for work. The police checked up on the Andrews residence only to find newspapers scattered all over the lawn and mail piling up in the mailbox. Inside, the couple, along with their black and yellow 1969 Oldsmobile, were missing. All of their clothes were inside the house, along with the suitcases, with nothing to suggest that the couple have decided to leave for an extended period of time. All of Stephania's jewelry was in the home except for the jewelry she wore that night at the Sheraton. When friends and family heard what Pearson, the parking lot attendant, had said about Andrew and Stephania's behavior that night in the parking lot, they were convinced that the couple Pearson was describing was not the Andrews, as their behavior seemed so out of character for the orderly couple. They were shocked to hear what Pearson had witnessed. Andrew and Stephania were known to be a conscientious couple that cared for their appearance and behavior, so it was very out of character for the two to be drunk and disorderly. They were not known to be heavy drinkers. Furthermore, no witnesses had seen the couple drink to excess or seen the couple act drunk at the actual cocktail party, although some witnesses described Edward as looking ill. Edward's brother found it most out of character for him to not even take a look at his damaged car after he had hid the garage door. Now that you know the events that led up to the untimely disappearance of the Edwards on May 15, 1970, let's jump into the theories that try to explain what happened to the Andrews that night. Theory number 1. Andrew and Stephania Edwards willingly left the city for a new life. One theory is that the couple left town on their own accord, but numerous pieces of evidence suggest otherwise. All of Andrew and Stephania's clothes were found inside their home in addition to their suitcases. All of Stephania's makeup and jewelry was untouched in their home. A gold pin that Stephania was spotted wearing the night of her disappearance by multiple witnesses was not found at the home. Police could not spot any areas of the house where there were any signs of foul play. All of their credit cards had not been used since the night of the 15th of May, and their bank accounts had not been touched as well. Police estimated that Andrew and Stephania collectively had approximately $140 on them on the night of their disappearance. Adjusted for inflation, that would be approximately $925 in today's money in 2020. The 1969 Oldsmobile's license plate was put on a national-wide alert, but no leads came up as well. Theory number 2. Andrew and Stephania Andrews drowned in their car. Police simulated the route that Andrew and Stephania could have potentially drove to get back to their home in Arlington Heights. It didn't take very long until they spotted something that looked like a potential clue. After following a potential route leading out of the garage of the Sheraton, they found scrape marks on a pillar on Wacker Drive. Thick tire marks could be found disappearing into the water right into the Chicago River. Safety rails usually guarded cars from the river. However, construction at the time meant there were no safety rails guarding cars from entering. The theory that Edward and Stephania drove into the water, either accidentally or not, was the main theory that the police believed to be true. We mentioned before that Edward was spotted driving the opposite way of Mission Avenue after hitting the garage door. The main theory is that Edward realized he was driving the wrong way, attempted to turn around on the Michigan Avenue bridge, but made a correction mistake and ended driving into the river. The first official search in the Chicago River started on June 3rd, 1970 for the 1969 Oldsmobile. Scuba divers and boats were used to try and locate any evidence of the car, but the search came up empty and there were no traces of the car or of Edward and Stephania. On August 7th, 1970, the river was searched one more time, this time more thoroughly with sonar equipment that combs the river. However, no trace of the Oldsmobile or the couple was ever found. 4 years after the Edwards had disappeared, another search was conducted. A section of the Chicago River that led to the waters of Lake Michigan was searched, but after hours of searching with metal detectors and divers, nothing was found. There are a number of issues with the theory that Andrew and Stephania Andrews accidentally drove into the water. Number 1, the point where Chicago police believe Edward drove their Oldsmobile into the river was only 16 feet deep, which is approximately only the length of the car. This hypothesized location where the Andrews drove into the water was also known only to have very soft currents, which made it unlikely for the car to be carried away far. If they had fallen into this location, the combination of the relatively mild depth and soft currents makes people wonder why no trace of the car was found. The second argument against this theory is that there was a lack of witnesses. Surely if there was a car going the wrong way on the Chicago Bridge, turned around and accidentally dropped into the water, somebody would have seen it. The Edwards left the Sheraton at approximately 9:30 p.m. and at that time, the areas surrounding the Chicago Bridge, although would not have been crowded, would still have multiple people around it to witness a car driving into the river and sinking. Theory number 3. Andrew and Stephania were murdered. Carol Broman, a famous psychic in the 70s who attempted to pick up vibrations from Stephania's hairbrush found in their home, claimed she saw the vision that the Andrews were murdered by a young male who was high on drugs at the time of the crime in a wooded area. According to Carol, this double murder happened after an argument took place between the young male and the Andrews. She claimed the car, along with the Andrews, were submerged in an unidentified lake. With leads quickly diminishing, the case fell cold and the Andrews were legally declared dead 8 years later in 1978. However, in 1994, 24 years after the disappearance, a man claimed he had witnessed members of the Lake Forest Losers, a gang who were known to cause trouble in Chicago, submerge Edward and Stephania's Oldsmobile with their bodies inside in a Green Oaks pond in Illinois. When asked why he took so long to come forward to the police, The man explained his 24-year delay with his severe case of amnesia. On August 2nd, 1994, divers combed 100 square meters of a lake in Green Oaks with metal detectors to find sunken boats but no cars. After the search in 1994, no major breakthroughs have been associated with this case. Leaving a sophisticated cocktail party, Edward and Stephania had no idea that the night at the Sheraton would be the last party they would be dressing up and attending. While police are leaning on the theory that they accidentally drove into the Chicago River and drowned, there are some incongruencies that could make one think otherwise. For now, how the Andrews disappeared on the night of May 15th, 1970 will remain unknown.